the event you wish to participate in future meetings but aren't able to attend in person or remotely, please feel free to email questions for the board ahead of the meeting to Brian Carmichael, town staff, whose email address is listed on the meeting agenda. So, with that out of the way, I'll call the meeting to order and dive into just a quick update on planning board business and policies. For any members who have pulled papers for the upcoming election, please ensure that you get your signatures back to the town clerk on time in order to appear on the April ballot. I always recommend soccer and basketball as a captive audience while people are watching their children or watching their phones and partially watching their children to get signatures. We don't have any bills or warrants to review at this time, and we do not have any minutes to approve at this point either. There are 2 items on the public hearing section of our agenda. The first is 0 South Washington Street, which is a project that we've been talking about since the end of December. That applicant is seeking a continuance to our next meeting on March the 28th. Maria or Brian, did they provide any specific reasoning for the continuance, or just keeping up with changes that are going back and forth?
My understanding is that they want to go through conservation before finishing up with planning. Based on our conversation prior to them asking for a continuance.
Okay. And do we feel that they'll be through conservation prior to the 28th meeting?
That's debatable, because I haven't been following conservation. Maria, do you have an opinion on that?
My understanding is that conservation has a lot of things that need to be addressed, and there were some problems with communication, to my understanding. So they weren't able to go through a full review at the last meeting. And they were continued to a separate meeting. So unless those problems in communication can be addressed, I'm not sure. But I know conservation was going to give them maybe one last meeting to get approved. So I'm sure they'll try to resolve them. But I know there's been a lot of back and forth that has been unresolved so far.
Okay. I know the 28th meeting we are discussing town meeting articles. Is there a lot on the rest of the agenda?
To my memory, I think we only have 2 applications for them, and then the 2 town meeting articles. Is that right, Brian? I'm just trying to remember what we had on the board.
I can check and confirm tomorrow morning if you want, Tim.
Okay. No, I think I have an expectation that the town meeting article discussion will take up a significant portion of time. So I would just say to the applicant for 0 South Washington, if they're not sure they're going to be ready on the 28th, it's going to be a long meeting. And given the discussions, it may make sense to hear them to continue again.
When's our next planning board? Is it April 11th, was it?
You mean afterwards?
Yeah, for the 28th. Is it the 11th?
Yeah, it is the 11th.
Okay. So we can let them know. I know their engineer is on vacation right now, which was part of the reason they were struggling at conservation last night. The plans weren't fully updated. And the engineer wasn't there to address some of the concerns. So I think a month will give them plenty of time to kind of get their ducks in a row and finalize some things.
Okay. But if they asked specifically for a request to the 28th, I think it may make sense to do that, but maybe the expectation is that the 11th would be when we hear this again, potentially.
Okay.
Anybody have any objections or other thoughts?
Motion to continue site plan review 17404 and and special permit 17406 until March 28th, 2023.
Okay, thank you for the motion and the second. As this is a remote meeting, I will go through everybody for a roll call vote. And I'm just going to go straight in order of how you appear on my screen. So, Jim, I will start with you.
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Danny?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that item is continued. And we'll talk about it again in the future. Next item on our agenda is 0 West Main Street. This is our initial public hearing on this project. It is site plan review 18291. Maria and Brian, I'm not sure if you know exactly who's going to drive here, but I'll let them speak up and present the project.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Driscoll of JDE Civil here tonight representing Douglas King Builders for 0 West Main Street. All right, so the project is, all right, so we're located on 0 West Main Street, which is just west of the church and the middle school. We abut the River Crossing condominiums to the west and south. The site is located in the Village Commercial District. And so the existing site, if we could go to sheet number 2. Existing site is unapproved currently, so this is a new construction project. We were before conservation first for a determination on the drainage ditch there, and it is an intermittent stream. We just got order conditions issued last night for notice of intent for this project, so that's pretty much all set. Just waiting for them to issue the order. We go to the next sheet, sediment erosion control plan. So this is pretty basic sediment erosion control plan showing the limit of clearing, perimeter, erosion controls, sedimentation controls, and limit of clearing. And we're showing stockpile and staging areas, structure entrance, all that type of stuff that is typical. The next page is the site layout plan showing the building. So this project is for a 2-story building, 4,000 square foot footprint, 8,000 total. There'll be a 4,000 square foot dentist office on the first floor. And on the second floor, we'll have 4 one-bedroom apartment units. So this is, as I mentioned, it's located in the Village Commercial District, and it's a mixed use that we're proposing here with top of the shop housing as defined in the zoning bylaw. And site will be accessed from West Main Street. A full 24-foot aisle entrance and exit onto this from the site, showing appropriate stop bar, stop sign for the exits. The building is 15 foot setback, 15 feet from the front lot line. We have the 10-foot landscape buffer and then a 5-foot walkway to get to the front entrance. We have 28 parking spaces. So that's based on a calculation for a for office. I think it's 200. one space per 200 square feet. Just do the line right here. So that's 20 spaces, and then 2 spaces per unit. We have 28 spaces are required, and we're proposing 28, so it fits perfectly on the site. We have a dumpster location that's screened and enclosed. 2 handicap parking spots as well as required. And we're showing snow storage areas off to the left of the driveway and to the right parking lot. And if we go to the next, and below the parking lot, you'll see in the next sheet here that we have the detention basin. So we have a proposed on-site septic system to the left of the driveway, right there, and then off to the south of the parking lot, we are sheet flowing the parking lot into 2 cement 4 bays in order to get the TSF removal we need, and then a infiltration basin to hold, treat, and infiltrate the stormwater runoff. There's also another smaller basin up to the upper left right there on the westerly side of the site. That takes from a high point where the septic tank is down to the property line. There is a catch basin right there. We catch as much as we can of the driveway heading towards the street. There's also an existing catch basin in the street and the state highway layout. So once we get through the local permitting, we'll be able to go to Mass DOT for the access permit. And both of these infiltration basins, both of these stormwater basins are infiltration basins, and they are designed to hold and infiltrate the entire volume that they receive from the paved areas up to including the 100-year storm. So we have emergency spillways, but we don't have outlet control structures. And we do have a drawdown pipe for maintenance on the larger basin. Along the hatched area along the downward slope on the outside of the basin, that is to be seeded with a deer resistant brush type mix so that the area revegetates as brush, so that when you have an A type of soil for soils for drainage, it's sand basically, and it absorbs water really fast. So if you just go from a wooded area to a grassed area, that will increase the runoff. So by planting brush, deer resistant mix, so deer won't eat it all, that gets us back to a similar ground cover type as woods. So that helps mitigate any issues with overland flow that might increase the runoff from the site, which tends to be an issue when you have really porous soils. And if we go to the next sheet, we'll show the landscaping and lighting. We have a separate lighting plan as well. If you want to take a look at that, but that's the landscaping that we're showing for the project. I'm not sure if it's in that PDF, but we have a separate PDF of the lighting plan, and we show per the regulations that we don't have more than 1/10 of a foot candle off the site. I have that called up on mine if you'd like me to share. Take my word for it, that's fine as well.
You should be free to share now.
There we go.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, so this is the lighting plan from Reflex Lighting. And the highlighted shows the 0-foot candles at the property line, and we have just 1/10 of a foot candle, a little bit over the property line here, but in the rest of the site, this is all our property. And we have a little bit of extra light going out towards the entrance, but we do kind of want to have that a little bit lit up at the roadway. So That's what we have there, and these are cut sheets, which were also submitted and uploaded to Permitize for the fixtures that are being proposed. These are shown. This is the SL1 fixture and the wall packs of the SL2 fixtures.
I see a notation on there, MH20. Is that in reference to the maximum height of 20?
Yes. And that's how they modeled the lighting spread as well. And I believe that's the max height for the bylaw. Is that correct?
Correct.
We
Yeah, I
also-
think that was one of the things we're looking at the lighting plan without the explanation. Let us make sure that that's what we're looking at here, and there isn't an additional waiver or something requested.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're requesting any waivers. I have those in the cover sheet. And then here are the building plans. These were also uploaded to Permitize. So exterior elevations, front and side. And all four sides. This will show you which ones are which. So this is the first floor. We have a couple of stairs up to the apartments. So this would be the front of the building, elevation A. That's this right here. And this is a similar type of building that Mr. King has built previously. This is the first floor for the dentist office, and then this will be the second floor for the apartment units.
Can you just, this may be a simple question, sorry to throw you off. Looking at the layout of the interior layout, can you just walk me through how people go into the building for the apartments?
Sure.
Because with the layering, I know that they don't go through the dentist office,
Mhm.
but
So this is the front part of the dentist office. This will be entrance directly into the dentist office. On the sides, these are egresses for the apartment units heading downstairs. And then right here is a foyer. This is off the back parking lot. You come in, you can go up to apartments, or actually, I thought they might have had access to the dentist office, but I'm not sure that they do. And then the second floor, you can see stairway going down that way.
so in theory, they're all entering from the rear of the building as we're looking at it from Main Street.
Correct.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I have for the overview. Standard details. And also, in addition of the drainage, we also have an infiltration trench along this side of the property line right here for more overland area that we can get into the basin. We originally had the building closer to this property line, but we moved it westerly in order to get this swell through here. And that's pretty much the overview of the project. We did receive comments from the fire department regarding the fire service. So we're showing right now one tap off the main and then the domestic off of the line here. They want us to have two separate taps at the main. So that's a revision that we'll make. And anything else that may come from the board tonight?
Okay. Maria, I know you had a couple of comments that you had shared with us in your memo. I know I kind of got the answer to the lighting question that you had, but you also had some potential notes in regards to buffer and screening, correct?
Yes, so our bylaw requires 20 feet of screening to abutting residential properties, and that would mean that I think it's the east, but on this side, the eastern side, you would need a landscape buffer, and you don't currently have one. So that would either be a waiver or an amendment to the plans. And I don't know if you got the memo I sent.
I did not.
Okay. I can send it to you. But it's section 6.5 of our bylaw, because it's a commercial district abutting a residential zone. That's why we require 20 feet of screening.
Okay. Residential zone or residential use?
A boundary, it actually doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're for both. In this case, because it is a residential property, regardless of zoning district, it's 20 feet. If it was a residential zone, it's 50. So that's just one comment I had. And another one related to landscaping was, and this might just be me not being able to calculate super accurately, but we have an insane bush requirement for a landscaping bylaw. It's like it was written by Deere or something, but it's you're the first person I've seen to even come close to providing enough shrubs and bushes as we require. But I think you might be a little short. But again, if you were able to provide me the dimensions of the landscape buffer, or if you were able to double check in AutoCAD, we have an equation. It's for every 100 square feet of area, you need 3 shrubs.
Of site area or?
Of buffer area, of landscape buffer area. It's 3 shrubs. I think you might be 15 shrubs short, but I also did it with a scale and I kind of just estimated. So I said just double check the shrub situation and you meet all the trees and parking, everything's fine there.
Okay.
And let me just go through. And again, I'll send you this so you have it. Do you have any proposed signage for that dentist office?
We are not showing it currently. There's a sign shown right here. I don't know if we have like a designed sign, you know, like what they're actually gonna put up, a rendering and everything of it. But I can add something like that to the plans. I can add a sign detail. That's what you prefer.
That would be great. We have a signed bylaw and I'll send you the section it is, but you know, we allow up to a certain dimension depending on the district. So I just want to make sure it's the right size.
Okay.
You know, they have to be illuminated by exterior lights, not by, it can be like a billboard type sign, etc. And I had one last thing, and this might be really minor, but because you're in Village Center, we have a requirement that you need to have lots of windows, but they don't say what lots of windows means. So I don't know if the planning board thinks the architectural plans satisfy that requirement, because we truly don't have a threshold for it. And I can pull up the language, but it says that you should provide an appropriate proportion of first floor facade as windows, doors, or other treatments sufficiently transparent to provide view to the interior of the building. But I don't know if that's 20% of the building or 40% or.
Okay.
I don't know if the planning board has any strong feelings on our
Yeah.
bylaw.
I guess I'll throw that to the board and ask how they feel about what we're showing.
Thank you for highlighting that, Maria.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm not sure if at first blush that seems appropriate to me. I am only one voice. So if any other board members feel that there are portions of this front facade that we should look at from that perspective, please feel free. And Mr. Driscoll, if you could just go over to one of the plans, one of the site plans. There was a question from a member of the public asking just to highlight where on this plan the river is. And there will be a portion of the virtual meeting where I asked directly for comments from members of the public, but I just wanted to address that one from a wayfinding perspective so everybody looking at this can understand what we're doing.
So this light color right here, as you're blind, this is the intermittent stream right here. Both sides of it.
Between the two teal lines, basically.
Yes. And then this is BBW line. That's flagged, and this is as well.
And you mentioned that you just got issued the order of conditions for that.
Yep, they voted to approve it last night. Not in receipt of it yet, but yep.
Okay. Again, we will have a portion of the meeting where we ask for public comments. Comments submitted in the Zoom chat we're not going to be reading comments from the chat into the meeting. So just hold on and we'll get to you if you are looking to speak or ask questions related to this project. Please feel free to use the reactions function in your Zoom meeting and kind of quote unquote raise your hand, and we'll know you're waiting to speak. At this point, I'll ask if any other members of the board have questions for the applicant at this time, based on the plans they've presented.
Just a quick question regarding the septic tank. I know that dental offices tend to produce a lot of chemicals and different types of waste. Is there a certain size that's required, by local law, state law, whatever it might be, of that septic tank, and does this meet those requirements?
They size the septic tanks based on how many dentists there are in the practice. And yes, we size it per that, and as well as the number of bedrooms for the residential units and all that. So, yep.
Thank you.
And dentist office these days lose a lot less water than they used to. So,
Have the bylaws changed with that, or is they still kind of lagging?
Title V has not. I don't think they've updated that. But it kind of takes into account everything with the dentist office as far as how many dentists they have, their staff, and stuff like that. So
Okay. Any members of the board have questions for the applicant at this time? Otherwise, I'll go to any members of the public who are looking to speak or ask questions.
My only question is, are there any EV charging stations required? I know more and more in mixed use they are required, and more in residential construction. I'm just not sure what triggers it. Might be a building inspector question.
Alan, I might be able to speak a little bit to that, although I can check with their building inspector tomorrow. But the only places that require EV charging stations are in Boston, because I looked up implementing a bylaw like that in Sharon, and it's not required in any other town or city outside of Boston, because it's a little hard to calculate exactly what percentage of use should be dedicated to EV parking. But I know there's also new clean energy regulations coming for new residential construction, so I can check with building commissioner and get back to you on that tomorrow.
It's worth just the ask. Every time they update the code, there's more and more with EV, and I've lost track of what triggers it now. So
I know with bigger projects, we had a couple bigger projects right now that have MEPA triggers. This is obviously way too small for that, but MEPA is requiring them for bigger projects like the new Raynham Park Simulcast Center. We're doing them for that.
So Alan, if you want to write a bylaw for Norton, you're free to submit that one to town meeting yourself.
that would be on the bottom of my list of the stuff that I would work on.
Laura, did you have something that you wanted to
I did. I just have one request. Can we go to the landscape plan that shows the variety of the plants that'll be planted? Please. Thank you. There's two on here in particular. The third one down, the pyramidal arborvitae, and the next one down, the white rose. Both of those, neither of those are deer resistant. The town has a very significant deer population and problem, and if we could switch those out with something more deer resistant, that would be appreciated. I looked at everything else. Almost everything else is fine. Those two, in particular, the deer tend to like those quite a bit.
They certainly do. Most arborvitaes don't really have anything 4 or 5 feet or below. So,
Thank you.
all right, no problem.
One last thing I would say, Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the use of color. I would encourage everybody to use color on these site plans. It makes things so much easier.
It does, yes. Any other members of the board have any additional questions or comments for the applicant at this time? Obviously, we can come back to it, but I do know we have a couple of members of the public online.
Just out of mild curiosity, and they don't have to answer this, is this an existing dentist office that's in town that's moving to this new space, or would this be a brand new office that you're aware of?
Potentially, he has an agreement with a buyer.
Okay. I'll ask if anybody who's attending the virtual meeting as members of the public would like to speak. If you would like to use the reactions function in Zoom to quote unquote raise your hand, you can do that. If you want to just unmute, that's okay too. But if people are raising their hand, I'll try and take them in order so we don't have complete mass chaos here. And I see somebody whose screen is labeled as Dave Miller. So I'll also ask if you can unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. You can leave your camera off if you choose or come on if you'd like.
Dave Miller, 227 West Main Street. I was just curious to know, is the 4 units allowed by right because of the lot size, or they're not requesting additional residential units beyond what they have by right?
Understood. Maria, I believe we know the answer to. I know the answer to this one, but this is this meets the guidelines of the district that it is in, correct, in terms of what is allowed by right. This is a site plan review. It's not a special permit.
Yes, and it's a mixed use. It's a district that was created for mixed use, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions from members of the public? I know I saw a couple of people looking like they were fiddling with their computers, so I'll ramble here for a second if anybody'd like to come off mute and have any questions or raise comments. Peter, if that's you, you're on mute, so I'm going to have to ask you to say that one more time. Okay. I see one more hand here. And if you can just please unmute and state your name and address for the record, please.
Freddie K. Moskowitz, 12 Edgewater Drive.
Hear you perfectly. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for all you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about the different trees that you'll be cutting down? And you see what's being replaced, the highest tree is 10 feet tall. I'm just wondering about all the grass I saw in the view in the front of the building.
Okay.
Just like a a better description of the landscaping plan. And then the second part of my question related to trees is, in the case of a disaster, like a Hurricane Irene situation, how does the planning board feel about water and this property? I know it's been very thought out with the runoff, but in an emergency, in a bad situation, is this property going to negatively impact the river and the houses around it?
Sure. So I can try to answer some of that, and Mr. Driscoll, I may ask you to step in a little bit here, but Norton's stormwater bylaw requires that the property capture the runoff that comes off the site, so that it is no worse than a no-build condition. So it can't get runoff from the site can't get worse after construction. As Mr. Driscoll described in the plan, this has been engineered to contain anything up to what's called a 100-year flood, which may come around more often or less often than 100 years, but that's the how engineers model the amount of rainfall that would come into the site or any site. So in terms of the landscaping plan, I know, Mr. Driscoll, you have the legend here. Obviously, it's a very wooded area right now, but all of the catch basins and drainage systems that is designed to make up for not having that tree cover. Correct?
Correct. And we're leaving, we're only clearing as much as we need to, so we're leaving a good buffer between us and the condominiums. As Mary pointed out, we'll look into beefing up the landscaping along here. And just a slight correction, it's the 100-year storm that we designed for. The 100-year flood is,
Apologies. Yes.
a little bit different. That's when you're talking floodplain stuff and FEMA flood insurance requirements and all that type of things. So, not to say those two couldn't coincide, but yeah. And the trees, these are the heights they'll be at planting, but they grow and they'll grow pretty quick over. They can be 12, 15 feet within like 10 years or so. A lot of these types of trees we have shown here. So, they'll fill in, they'll be bigger like they're supposed to, and provide a good landscaping look for the property.
And just did you mention the hatched area on the edge of the plan? That is
calling out right here is a seed mix. There's just an upland meadow mix. So yeah, that'll be a brushy kind of area, and I'm sure some trees and saplings or anything from the wooded area will migrate into this area, and we'll have trees start to crop up in there over time. Because this area won't be mowed or anything really. We'll mow on the top of the basin or anything like that for maintenance and access. And of course over the septic system, but otherwise after we see this, it's kind of be pretty much left alone. Through here.
okay. Thank you for the details there.
Yep.
Did you have any additional questions, Ms. Moskowitz?
Yes. How many of the plants are native?
I have to ask my landscape designer about that, but most of them are from the native list, I believe.
And then the other question is, the Jack pear, is that similar to the Bradford in that it will split when it gets higher than 15 feet?
Can we look into that?
We have a huge problem over here with Bradford pears.
Oh, really? They're not.
Yes. So the pears are the least expensive trees that landscapers can use. And when they get to a certain height, if you don't trim them, which is very expensive to do, they will split and you'll lose the tree.
Okay.
So it's a short, well, relatively short-term type of proposition, but not fun when it starts coming down.
I can imagine.
I see all your bylaws and everything, and it's amazing what Norton does. And my neighbor, who's practically born here, said that this is an excellent plan. However, I just think also when you make decisions about like the plant should be native, like we can do a little, if you can do a little bit more, even if you don't have to, like ethically, there's certain things we should do. And I asked about the grass because grass equals, fertilizer. Grass is very 20th century. We're moving towards a society where you're going to have meadows, and you're laughing, but it's true. Like you're going to have perennials. If anyone saw the Reader's Digest last month, you would be horrified. So my husband can't.
It's a lot of water. Water, fertilizer. It's maintenance, and if you own a building and a business there, you don't necessarily want to be maintaining it all the time. So something that looks good and has less maintenance is a good thing.
Yes. Anyway, that is all. But thank you for listening.
Thank you for participating. Okay. Any other members of the public who have here joined us in this virtual meeting who would like to ask any further questions or have any other comments related to this project? Well, I'll wait for anybody to come off mute or raise their virtual hand here. Mr. Isco, I know you mentioned kind of being with conservation and other things in process. Are there other things you need from Concom or other town boards or committees as it relates to this project that you're still waiting on, that you need to coordinate activities or?
Nope.
That is a succinct answer. Okay.
I mean, once we get these permits through, we'll have to go to, like I mentioned earlier, Mass DOT for the access permit. Building department, that's usually the contractor will do that for building permit. And we have follow-up stuff to do with per the order conditions with conservation, pre-construction meeting, provide them a copy of the SWIP, stuff like that.
Okay. It's generally with conservation where there's potentially conservation may push through changes that you want to put into the site plan, et cetera, et cetera. But just making sure that we are not crossing T's prematurely, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So I see a couple of like minor kind of revisions to make here, including one from the fire department for the water connection.
I was going to ask the members of the board if they had any further comments, questions, or notes for the applicant. Obviously, if you're writing down your homework list, we want to make sure you have everything on it at once.
Tim, should we revisit that window question?
Oh.
Yes, but I was going to bring up, Alan.
Okay, let's do it.
Go ahead. Nope,
I think moving forward, we just need to have something that we can fall back on. Like, while that plan, the building looks really good and the windows seem appropriate and spaced fine, I think we need to have something that gives us a concrete number so that it doesn't just have to be an eye test that might be different for everybody else.
The bylaw does not have a number. The bylaw has the eye test, which means that we would have to change the bylaw to eliminate the eye test. I don't think we need to do this as a vote now. We would need to potentially include it in the decision as just a finding. But if anybody does not feel that the windows as shown meets the bylaw requirements per Maria's memo, as you mentioned, Jim, let's say it now.
I was gonna say, Tim, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It would probably look more busy if they added more windows in between the double and the triples. They probably need that wall space in the residences upstairs, so they wouldn't be able to replicate it on the second floor. And it might throw off the balance. I really have no problem with this.
Agreed. I think it looks fine. I think we just need to have something more concrete going in the future.
There's your homework, Jim, for writing it.
Listen, I'm good at assigning homework, okay? That's what teachers do, assign homework.
Okay.
My only thought to potentially improve the windows on the first floor is in lieu of doing the triples, make those each a bay window, a single pane window. That would be a suggestion. It wouldn't throw off the look. It should align with what's on the top floor. But I don't think it looks bad the way it is. It would be a suggestion only.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
just as a point of reference, and I know this is a different town, but Mansfield has a 50% glass requirement for their downtown district. So 50% of a facade needs to be glass. That's the only time I've seen a percentage in a bylaw. And again, 50% might be too much for this district or for Norton, but just a suggestion. And I think they're maybe like 30% here for the first floor. So
I would be more concerned if this was in Village Center Core, quite honestly.
yeah,
I think that's where we wanted more design input like that, since this is off the center core, this is further down. That's kind of the reason I don't have a problem with it.
okay, good to know.
All right, so the relatively minor changes. Would you guys consider issuing tonight with conditions of approval, or would you want me to request a continuance and resubmit plans?
Thank you for answering the question I was going to ask. Or asking the question I was going to ask, I should say. So I'll defer to members in that respect. I think we have the buffers is one change, meeting the bylaw, making sure that we're meeting the bylaw as noted, and as well as adjusting some of the trees.
I would be fine with moving forward with approved, just with the conditions, with the landscaping and the issues that we talked about. Like I said, again, I'm fine with the windows as are. I think they look good. But
So I'll swap out the trees. I'll add more landscaping along here as a buffer to this property. And
Do we have enough room for a 20-foot buffer there? I don't have a scale or anything in front of me. I can't tell.
I have 20 feet from the edge of pavement here, but there is that swale through here, so I can't put plants right on the swale, but I have 20 feet there and 32 feet to the sidewalk here, so I can actually beef up the landscaping along here.
Could
That is pretty tight, but yeah. Maria, did you have something?
yeah, so if we could also get a number on the landscaping buffer for the frontage, just so we can make sure that you have enough plantings as required by a bylaw. I think you're very close, if not there, but I just couldn't really tell from using a scale. It's a little easier in AutoCAD, so.
Okay, so it's this area right up in here that I need to calculate, right in front of the building or along the whole frontage?
That's our bylaw's not specific.
Okay.
I calculated it in front of the building and when you have the trees on the western side, just because that's where I saw in green. But if the planner has any preference, if they want the screening, what exactly is the landscape buffer? How far does it extend? Is it the entirety of the frontage or is it just the front of the building itself? because that's going to change the requirements. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Okay, so that would so Maria, the question is whether, so if we were to approve this evening as is, we would potentially be needing to include a waiver for that section of the bylaw, and or including a condition that it's met.
Yeah.
So I almost see that as an either or. Either we're giving a waiver or we're asking for a few additional shrubs to meet the requirement. It's tough to have both of those at once.
Yeah.
From what I saw, it was like over 100 little shrubs, and they have those. They have plenty. They have the 3-foot little hedge at the front. They have the trees. The shrubs are just another layer of landscape on top of that. And like I said, they seem close enough that I feel like a waiver will be okay because the landscaping plan is good. But that's your decision. And again, I couldn't calculate. It was a little hard for me to do it just with the scale, but
Okay. So, just looking at your memo again, Maria. So we have the windows, we have the buffer requirement, with the shrub calculation, which is a potential waiver. We talked about the lighting. Signage, we don't have signage shown on the plans now. But with the understanding that they would meet the bylaw. The only other
They
thing,
get a sign permit anyways, I believe, right, from the building inspector? But how that works? Do we need a sign permit from the building inspector?
Maria, is that,
they're usually some of them you can do by right, so you can just put them up, I believe. And some of them are regulated by the planning board. That's why the size of the sign matters. But I can check with the building inspector and that and the EV parking requirements tomorrow. So
Okay. Yeah, we'll make the sign whatever size it needs to be as required.
and the only other thing, Maria, that you had in your memo was that the planning board may, if it choose, request a guarantee on new plant material or require a bond only until the landscaping plan is fully implemented. Mr. Drexel, do you have any objection to that condition?
I mean, kind of depends on what the bond's gonna be. I'm not the one paying it, my client would be, so. As long as I don't agree to something that I'm not gonna get a job from them, I guess. But yeah, that's not
Understood.
a bond for plants, because they survive, they're taken care of, they get the money back.
Understood. So to make sure that we brought it up prior rather than including it in any potential decision and having not discussed it. Okay. So again, members of the board, the question is, do we feel comfortable giving this a conditional approval based on what we've talked about tonight? Or whether we would prefer this be continued to a future session and we review a revised set of plans incorporating many of those changes.
Option number 2 would be my preferred.
Yeah, same here. I also, as a quick question just on that buffer that's not currently there. What specifically is on that side right now? I'm just having trouble visualizing it from the map. Is that the middle school on that side, the church?
This right here is a residence.
It's the residence. Okay.
Is a residence and then the church, or maybe a couple?
Okay, so right now the buffer isn't there, and okay, I understand. All right, yeah, I think for option 2, I think that the buffer would need to be there, in some capacity.
Yeah, it's a heavily wooded lot right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that is. Okay.
so Alan, your preference is to continue and review a revised set of plans. Any other members feel differently?
I'm fine with
Or if
going
we,
with the conditions.
okay, well, I am just the chair. One of you guys has to make the motions. So, Laura, Danny, Wayne, any thoughts?
I guess, just a quick question. If you did do a continuance, how much time would you need to resubmit?
Not much. It's pretty minor stuff. I'd like to be on the next meeting on the 28th. I know you have a busy night that night. So it's kind of why I was hoping to go for conditions of approval. And revised set of plans could be reviewed and approved by Maria before issuing the actual decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I could have it ready for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
How do you feel about closing the public hearing? They submit the documents, we see them before the meeting, Wednesday before, and then we go right to a vote in the next meeting.
I believe a revised set of plans would count as evidence that we can't take in when a public hearing is not in session.
Gotcha. It just seems to me there's one too many things up in the air. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm gonna make a motion to continue SBR 18291 to March 28th.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric and a second by Danny. Is there any further discussion on the motion to continue to the 28th? Okay. I'm going to go through the members for a vote. I think people have moved around on my screen, so apologize if I catch you on the off guard here. Eric, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Danny,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and I will vote yes.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Maria, when would you like the revisions by?
The sooner the better, but the planning board now has a policy that if you can get it to us the Thursday before the meeting, that's enough time for us to revise it and for me to provide a memo summarizing any changes.
Okay. I'll try to get it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay. So that item is continued until our meeting on the 28th, where we'll also be talking about town meeting bylaws and a few other items. Is there anything else anybody would like to discuss during tonight's meeting as we have reached the close of our posted agenda?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan, for the motion and Wayne for the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Eric,
Yes.
Laura? I did not hear that, Laura. Sorry.
Yes.
Danny?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.